Welcome to Master Self-Discipline. Today, an empowering journey presented by Liberty Audiobook. A world brimming with distractions, where every impulse is catered to and every comfort is just a click away, true freedom often feels elusive. We chase fleeting motivation, hoping it will ignite the consistent effort needed for our grandest ambitions. What if discipline is not about monumental effort, or a punishing regimen, or some inherent trait bestowed upon a select few? What if it is instead a quiet, dangerous power, an invisible structure built within, decision by decision, day by day, that makes you unstoppable over time? Most people misunderstand discipline. They equate it with deprivation, restriction, or a joyless existence. They see it as a relentless battle against oneself. But the truth, the profound truth we will uncover together, is that discipline is personal authority. It is the ability to command yourself and know with absolute certainty that you will listen. It is self-respect in action. Think of it. When discipline is weak, life feels chaotic, fragmented, and dictated by external forces or fleeting moods. We become prisoners of our own whims, reactive to every external stimulus. But when discipline is strong, our life transforms. It becomes simple, clear, and controlled. It becomes a testament to the liberty of a mind that has mastered itself. In this audiobook, we will strip discipline down to its core. We will move past the hype, the shortcuts, and the surface-level advice that promises instant transformation but delivers only fleeting motivation. You will learn that authentic discipline is not found, it is built from the ground up through identity, clear standards, unwavering structure, and consistent, often boring, repetition. You will discover how to act without negotiating with your emotions, how to keep promises to yourself, and how to create systems that make consistency not just possible, but inevitable. This journey is not about becoming perfect. Perfection is a mirage. This is about becoming reliable to yourself, about forging an inner contract that you honor above all else. Dangerous discipline does not announce itself with fanfare. It does not seek external validation. It works quietly, diligently, while others are still lost in the labyrinth of excuses and hesitation. Over time, it creates an unbridgeable chasm between those who merely talk about their aspirations and those who steadfastly act upon them, between those who wish for a different life and those who actually become it. This audiobook is not meant to inspire you for a moment, to give you a temporary burst of enthusiasm that will inevitably fade. No, this is meant to train you for a lifetime. As you listen, do not rush through the ideas. Let them settle, reflect on them deeply, and then, most importantly, apply them slowly, seriously, and honestly. Discipline, like a fertile field, rewards patience and punishes delay. If you commit to what you are about to learn, your life will begin to change in ways that feel calm, controlled, and most powerfully, permanent. You will not merely have discipline, you will become disciplined. You will become truly free. Let us begin. Chapter 1. Draw the line. You will not cross. Every disciplined life, every journey towards true personal liberty, begins not with an elaborate goal or a meticulously detailed plan, but with a line, a clear, uncompromising personal boundary that declares unequivocally, from this point forward, this behavior, this choice, this pattern is no longer acceptable. Until that line exists, until that internal decree is issued, discipline remains a fragile whisper, easily drowned out by the noise of old habits, because tolerance remains high. Consider the nature of change itself. We do not fundamentally alter our trajectory because we are momentarily inspired. Inspiration is a spark, a fleeting burst of light. true change, the kind that endures, occurs when we reach a point of absolute clarity, a moment when we decide, with every fiber of our being, that something ends here. This is the moment the line is drawn. Most people live without these lines. They navigate their days in a constant state of internal negotiation. Just this once, they rationalize. I will start tomorrow. It is not that bad. Everyone does it. And because there is no firm, unyielding boundary, the mind, ever seeking comfort, and the path of least resistance, keeps slipping back to old, detrimental patterns. Discipline, in its true and formidable sense, cannot roam a mind that constantly leaves doors open for retreat, for compromise, for self-betrayal. If you genuinely desire a different life, if you aspire to greater things and to the liberation of your potential, you must make a foundational decision. What version of yourself is no longer allowed to run things? Which limiting habit, which comfortable excuse, which energy-draining distraction are you absolutely done with? This act of drawing a line is not about being harsh or punitive with yourself. On the contrary, it is an act of profound honesty and self-respect. It is being brutally honest about what is genuinely costing you time, what is silently draining your precious energy, what you continue to tolerate, that you secretly resent, and that keeps you from the person you know you can be. Discipline begins precisely when tolerance ends. It starts when you move past the timid declaration of, I will try, and embrace the definitive, authoritative statement, I do not do that anymore. Reflect on the most significant changes in your own life. Were they the result of slow, gradual motivation? Or did they arise from moments of intense clarity, moments where something inside you snapped into focus, and you declared, enough is enough? But that moment is potent because it removes the internal debate. It silences the negotiating voice. And discipline, our quiet, dangerous ally, grows fastest when that debate disappears. When you draw a line, you are not promising immediate perfection. You are instead setting a new standard. A standard, by its very definition, does not argue, it does not explain. It does not wait for feelings or convenient circumstances. It simply exists, a fixed point of reference. And once that standard is set, your behavior either matches it or violates it. That crystalline clarity in itself generates immense strength. It clarifies your identity. Here is where many people stumble. They try to draw 10 lines simultaneously. I will wake up earlier, eat perfectly, work harder, be more focused, meditate, exercise daily. This scattershot approach rarely lasts. Discipline, like a robust wall, is built brick by brick. It is forged by drawing one single clear line, and then with unwavering resolve defending it daily. One clear boundary, one behavior you absolutely refuse to excuse anymore. That is more than enough to begin. Perhaps your line is this: I do not miss workouts, or I do not lie to myself about my effort, or I do not waste my mornings scrolling aimlessly. The specific nature of the line is less critical than the absolute commitment to it. What matters most is this: when the moment comes, that moment of choice, where the old habit whispers or the comfortable excuse beckons, you honor it, even when it is uncomfortable. Especially when it is uncomfortable. At first, honoring this newly drawn line will feel heavy. Your old habits, deeply ingrained, will push back with surprising force. Your mind will desperately search for exceptions, for loopholes, for reasons to delay. This is not a sign of weakness. It is entirely normal. Discipline is not the absence of resistance. It is rather the powerful ability to act correctly and align with your higher self while resistance is still present. Every single time you hold that line, something profoundly important happens within you. You begin to trust yourself again. Self-trust, my friend, is the bedrock of all lasting discipline and indeed all personal liberty. When you break promises to yourself, even small ones, you erode that trust. You tell your subconscious that your word, even to yourself, is unreliable. But when you keep them, when you defend that line, you rebuild it, brick by painstaking brick. And once self-trust returns, once you know that when you tell yourself to do something, you will do it, discipline stops feeling like a forced imposition. It starts feeling natural. It feels like integrity. So I urge you, do not rush this foundational chapter. Pause, reflect, and with utmost sincerity, decide what ends here. What are you truly done tolerating? Draw that line clearly in your mind. Write it down. The act of inscription makes it more concrete, more real. And from this very moment forward, let that line, that declaration of your new standard, guide your actions. Discipline does not begin with a surge of effort. It begins with a single firm decision that you refuse to reverse. That decision is your first step towards true self-mastery. Chapter 2. Design your days, design your destiny. If you do not decide how your day will be used, something else most certainly will decide for you. That something else might be the insistent ping of notifications, the seemingly urgent demands of other people, the capricious tides of your own random moods, or simply the well-worn grooves of pure habit. This is how the vast majority of lives are lived, reactively. An reactive life, a life lived constantly responding to external stimuli, can never, by its very nature, produce consistently disciplined results or the deep satisfaction of self-direction. Discipline begins the moment you stop waking up asking, "What do I feel like doing today?" and start waking up knowing, with quiet certainty, what must be done today. Your days are not neutral canvases, they are powerful currents. They either push you forward towards your highest ideals, or they subtly, slowly pull you backward into the comfortable mire of the status quo. There is no standing still in the river of time. When your day lacks structure, when it is left to chance, your energy leaks out through 1,000 small decisions, through endless interruptions, and through frustrating delays. By the time you finally reach the work that actually matters, the work that would advance your goals and fulfill your potential, you often feel tired, unfocused, and perpetually behind. This is not primarily a motivation problem. It is fundamentally a design problem. Highly disciplined people, those who seem to move with effortless purpose, do not rely on sheer willpower to navigate their days. As we discussed in the introduction, and will explore deeper, willpower is a finite resource. Instead, they rely on structure. Structure removes friction. It reduces the overwhelming number of choices you have to make throughout the day, replacing them with clear, logical sequences of action. When you know what comes next, when the path is laid out, you do not waste precious mental energy deciding. You simply move. You execute. Designing your day is not about filling every single minute with relentless activity or living like a rigid automaton. It is about deciding consciously and in advance what truly deserves your best hours, your peak energy, your sharpest focus, and what can, and often should, wait. It is about understanding that your attention is a finite and incredibly valuable resource, and treating it with the profound respect it deserves. A well-designed day does not just manage your time, it actively protects your priorities instead of exposing them to the whims of the moment. Start with this simple, often overlooked truth. Not all hours are equal. There are specific hours when your mind is sharper, when your energy reserves are higher, when deep focus comes more naturally to you. Discipline means deliberately placing your most important, most challenging work into those peak hours, not leaving it for later. For later, as we all know, is where important things often go to die a slow, unnoticed death. Most people, tragically, reverse this. They squander their best, most potent hours, reacting to emails, endlessly checking messages, scrolling through trivial feeds, or handling small, non-essential tasks. Then, when their energy is depleted and their focus is fragmented, they try to force themselves into deep, meaningful work. This inevitably leads to frustration, to the gnawing feeling of inadequacy, and tragically reinforces the false belief that discipline is inherently hard. It is not hard, it is just poorly scheduled and poorly designed. When you design your day, you are making a quiet but incredibly powerful statement to yourself and to the world. My life is intentional. I am the architect of my experience. You are deciding when you will engage in deep work, when you will intentionally rest and recover, when you will dedicate time to profound thought, and when you will consciously disconnect from the noise. You are no longer passively available to randomness. You become the active director of your own time and energy. This does not demand a complicated, color-coded system that requires a PhD to maintain. In fact, complexity often becomes an elaborate excuse to avoid the actual work of designing. Discipline favors simplicity. Identify, with laser focus, the 3 things that matter most each day. Not 10, not every item on your to-do list, but the crucial, needle-moving 3. Then, decide precisely when those 3 things will happen. Block them out on your calendar as if they were unmissable appointments, because that is exactly what they are, appointments with your future self. Another critical component of daily design, often overlooked, is the protection of transitions. Most days fall apart, not because of one big, catastrophic failure, but because of sloppy, undefined transitions. One task bleeds into the next. One 5-minute break stretches into an hour. One fleeting distraction opens the door to a multitude of others. Disciplined days, by contrast, have clear starts and clear stops. When it is time to work, you work with focused intensity. When it is time to rest, you truly rest, without guilt, without allowing your mind to drift back to unfinished tasks. You must also meticulously design your mornings and evenings. How you begin your day sets its entire tone. A chaotic, reactive morning creates a downstream ripple of reactive energy. Conversely, a careless, unplanned night steals clarity, intention, and crucial mental space from the very beginning of tomorrow. Discipline, therefore, lives at the edges of your schedule, in those moments when you consciously choose how to transition from one state to the next. And here is something most people, particularly in a culture that rewards busyness, do not want to hear. Saying yes to everything is poor planning. When your day is already thoughtfully designed, when your priorities already enshrined in your schedule, it becomes far easier, almost natural, to say no. Not out of selfishness, but out of a profound respect for the structure you have painstakingly built and for the integrity of your own commitments. Every unnecessary commitment, every obligation taken on without careful consideration, weakens your discipline by fragmenting your most precious resource, your focus. At first, this act of designing your days will inevitably feel restrictive. It will feel strange, perhaps even uncomfortable. That is normal and expected. True freedom always feels strange, even a little disorienting, to a mind that has grown accustomed to the chaos and endless choice of an unplanned existence. But over time, something profound shifts. You begin to feel calm, deeply grounded, and powerfully in control of your own direction. You stop rushing through life. You stop constantly falling behind. You start finishing what you begin, and you experience the deep satisfaction of purpose. Remember this enduring truth. Discipline is not about pushing harder through brute force. It is fundamentally about designing better. When your days are intentional, when your environment supports your goals, rather than sabotaging them, discipline stops being a constant, training battle against yourself. It becomes the natural, organic result of a life that knows precisely where it is going and, with quiet conviction, absolutely refuses to drift. This is the bedrock of personal sovereignty. Chapter 3. Act without negotiation. Silence the inner debate. Most people do not fail because they are fundamentally incapable. They fail far more often because they engage in a belittling process. They negotiate with themselves at the precise moments when decisive action is required. The instant a task calls for effort, a silent conversation begins in the mind. Maybe later. I am too tired. I will do it after just 5 more minutes of this. This inner dialogue, this subtle bargaining, feels harmless in the moment. Yet, it is one of the greatest, most insidious enemies of true, lasting discipline. Every time you negotiate with yourself, you introduce delay. Every time you delay, you weaken your own authority, your personal sovereignty over your actions. Discipline strengthens, not when effort feels monumental, but when action becomes automatic, not emotional, not dramatic, not requiring a pep talk, but simply automatic. The goal is not to wait to feel ready, to feel perfectly motivated, or to feel a burst of inspiration. The goal is to move, to initiate, before your mind has the luxury or the opportunity to construct an elaborate excuse. The more you wait for the right feeling, the more control you inadvertently give away to your fleeting emotions. Consider how effortlessly you perform actions that you have long ago deemed non-negotiable. You do not typically debate brushing your teeth in the morning. You do not argue with yourself about showing up to an important professional appointment. Why? Because the decision for these actions was made long ago. There is no discussion left. That same powerful principle, that same pre-commitment, must be applied to the behaviors that are designed to shape your future, to build the life you truly desire. Negotiation, this destructive internal debate, thrives when decisions are vague. A vague intention like, I should work out more, is an open invitation for internal argument. It is an invitation for the mind, which naturally prefers comfort and energy conservation, to find reasons to opt out. In stark contrast, a clear, decisive statement like, I train at 6 o'clock a.m. every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, shuts down the debate entirely. Discipline demands this kind of crystal clarity. When the rule, the standard, is unmistakably clear, action flows with significantly less resistance. When the rule is ambiguous, the mind will, without fail, gravitate towards comfort and avoidance. Here is an uncomfortable truth that many people avoid confronting. Your mind, left to its own devices, will almost always argue against effort. This is not a moral flaw, it is a biological imperative. The brain, in its ancient wisdom, is wired to conserve energy, to avoid perceived discomfort. Discipline is not about silencing that inner voice of resistance. It is about refusing to allow that voice to lead you when action, deliberate and purposeful action, is unequivocally required. Training yourself to act without negotiation begins small, remarkably small. It might be something as simple as standing up immediately when your alarm goes off, rather than hitting snooze. It could be opening your notebook or your work file, the precise moment it is time to begin a task, even when you feel slow, distracted, or uninspired. It might be starting that unpleasant email or making that difficult phone call the instant it appears on your list. These are not grand, heroic acts. They are, in essence, training repetitions for your will. Each one builds a sliver of internal authority. At first, this practice will feel uncomfortable. You may even experience physical resistance, a palpable reluctance in your body. This is perfectly normal. You are actively interrupting a deeply ingrained habit of delay and avoidance. But something immensely significant happens when you act without negotiating. You prove to yourself, through direct experience, that action is entirely possible without perfect conditions, without a surge of motivation, without the right feeling, and that undeniable proof fundamentally changes how you perceive yourself. Self-discipline, the quiet, dangerous kind, is not built in big, dramatic, heroic moments that garner applause. It is built in the countless quiet decisions no one else ever sees, decisions where you could delay, but you do not, where you could negotiate, but you simply act. Over time, these small, consistent moments coalesce into a powerful pattern, and patterns, as we know, forge identity. Another common mistake people make is waiting for confidence to appear before they act. They believe they need to feel capable before they begin, but confidence does not come first. Action does. Confidence is a direct result of repeatedly doing what you said you would do, especially and most powerfully when it is inconvenient, when it is difficult, when every fiber of your being wants to retreat. The more you act without negotiation, the less resistance you actually feel the next time. The path becomes smoother, not because the effort decreases, but because your capacity grows. This approach does not mean becoming rigid, unthinking, or reckless. It means choosing, consciously and in advance, which actions are to be automatic. Your work start time, your training time, your dedicated focus blocks. These are not decisions you revisit and debate daily. They are policies, firm and unyielding, and policies, precisely, protect your discipline. When resistance inevitably shows up, and it will, do not argue with it. Do not try to motivate yourself through lengthy internal debates. Simply begin. Motion, any motion, no matter how small or imperfect, creates momentum. Once you initiate, the mind often settles into the task, and even when it does not, even when the inner voice continues its protests, progress still happens. You will notice something else profound. As you consistently practice this, the voice of excuse, the voice of negotiation, grows quieter. Not because it magically disappears, but because it loses its persuasive influence. You stop taking it seriously. You begin to recognize it for what it truly is, mere noise, not instruction. Acting without negotiation is a skill, a muscle of the will. Like any skill, it strengthens with consistent use. The more you practice, the faster you move. The faster you move, the less power resistance holds over you, and over time, discipline stops feeling like a forced imposition, a constant struggle against yourself. It begins to feel like a profound alignment between your deepest intentions and your daily actions. Remember this. Every negotiation you avoid strengthens your discipline. Every immediate action, however small, reinforces your authority over yourself. Train yourself to move when it is time to move. That is how discipline becomes truly dangerous, quietly powerful, remarkably fast, and incredibly difficult to stop. This is how you reclaim your internal liberty. Chapter 4. The Subtle Erosion, Removing Weakening Comforts. Comfort, in its purest form, is not the enemy. A warm bed after a long day, a satisfying meal, the quiet ease of companionship, these are natural, human desires, and indeed, essential for restoration. The problem, the true danger to your discipline, begins when comfort becomes constant, automatic, and unquestioned. When every inconvenience is instantly removed, when every fleeting moment of boredom is immediately filled, when every desire is satisfied without delay or effort, something vital inside you slowly, subtly, begins to dull. That something is your edge, your resilience, your capacity for the very effort that builds a life of purpose. Discipline weakens not from confronting hardship, but from succumbing to too much ease. Most people do not realize they are being softened by an excess of comfort because it feels utterly harmless in the moment. A few extra minutes of scrolling, a little more sleep than necessary, a slight avoidance of a challenging task. None of it feels truly dangerous. But discipline, like a sturdy bridge, is rarely destroyed by one catastrophic explosion. Instead, it erodes, slowly and almost imperceptibly, through the accumulation of small, seemingly innocent comforts, repeated daily. Here is a hard truth, one that demands honest introspection. Whatever you consistently reach for, to feel better, especially when faced with an impending challenge or discomfort, is subtly training you to avoid sustained effort. Comfort, when it becomes a reflex, teaches the mind that discomfort is a problem, a state to be escaped from, something to be fixed or alleviated immediately. Discipline, on the other hand, teaches the exact opposite. It teaches that discomfort is often a signal to stay, to persist, to work through, and ultimately, to grow. It is the crucible where true character is forged. If you are serious about cultivating dangerous discipline, if you wish to reclaim the full measure of your self-sovereignty, you must courageously identify the specific comforts that are quietly, insidiously weakening you. Not all comforts, let me repeat, but the ones that steal your strength, the ones you reach for automatically, the ones you often defend, the ones that become your immediate refuge when effort, boredom, or resistance appears. This insidious comfort might be your smartphone, a constant portal to distraction. It might be certain foods, offering a momentary sugary escape. It could be endless entertainment, mindlessly consumed. It might even be the comfort of endless planning and strategizing, a clever disguise for avoiding the discomfort of actual doing. Comfort wears many masks, but the underlying pattern is always the same. Effort or discomfort appears, and comfort offers an easy, seductive exit. Removing weakening comforts does not equate to living a harsh, ascetic life. Far from it. It means choosing comfort intentionally, consciously, rather than reflexively. There is a profound difference between genuine rest and escapism. Rest, true rest, restores your body and mind, replenishing your reserves for the next push. Escape, by contrast, is a deliberate avoidance of something you know, deep down, you should be facing. Discipline grows precisely when you delay comfort on purpose, when you commit to finishing the demanding work before allowing yourself to relax, when you choose to stay with a challenging task a little longer than your immediate desire dictates, when you consciously choose the harder, more effortful option, not because it is heroic or dramatic, but because it is unequivocally necessary for your growth and your long-term vision. At first, this practice will, as expected, feel uncomfortable. That is not a bug. It is the very point, or actively retraining your nervous system, teaching your mind that fundamental truth. Discomfort is survivable. It is temporary. It is not an emergency. Each time you intentionally choose effort over ease, your tolerance for discomfort increases, And as your tolerance expands, your discipline strengthens, forming an unbreakable inner core. The modern world, with all its technological marvels, is brilliantly designed to remove every conceivable form of friction from our lives. Everything is engineered to be easier, faster, softer, more convenient. While this offers undeniable benefits, it is also profoundly dangerous for the cultivation of discipline. When external life removes all natural resistance, you must, as an act of deliberate self-mastery, intentionally add some back, not to suffer, but to stay sharp, to keep your inner faculties honed. Simple practices matter immensely here. Choosing to walk instead of always sitting, engaging in focused work without the comforting hum of background noise, leaving your phone in another room, out of immediate reach, ending your showers with a brief burst of cooler water. None of these acts are extreme. Yet they all subtly reintroduce effort and intentional discomfort into your day. And effort, consciously chosen, is the lifeblood of discipline. The ultimate goal is not discomfort for its own sake. The goal is resilience. When you regularly choose effort over immediate ease, you gradually stop fearing hard work. You stop flinching at difficulty. You develop a quiet, unshakable confidence that whispers, "I can handle this. I am capable of more than I thought." Here is an important insight. Comfort is most dangerous, most undermining, when you feel entitled to it. When you implicitly believe you deserve ease and reward before you have earned tangible progress through effort, discipline flips at destructive order. It declares with serene authority, effort first, comfort later. Work first, rest second. This simple, yet revolutionary sequence changes everything about your relationship with success. You will, without question, notice resistance when you begin removing these weakening comforts. Your mind will argue fiercely. It will say, "You are being too strict, too serious, too hard on yourself." That voice is not wisdom, it is habit, deeply entrenched, defending its comfortable territory. Listen to it, acknowledge it, but do not obey it. Over time, something profound shifts. You begin to enjoy effort, not because it is inherently pleasant, but because it gives you back control. You feel stronger, clearer, more grounded in your purpose. Comfort loses its manipulative grip because you no longer need it to escape from yourself or your responsibilities. Dangerous discipline is forged when you stop allowing comfort to dictate your actions and your trajectory. It is built when you consciously choose effort, intentionally, repeatedly, and quietly. Remove the comfort that is making you weak, and you will, fail, discover a reservoir of strength you may have long forgotten you possessed, waiting to be unleashed. This is a crucial step towards your personal liberation. Chapter 5. Rebuilding Trust, the Foundation of Self-Reliability. Discipline, in its most fundamental essence, collapses the moment you stop trusting yourself. Not because you suddenly lack ability or competence, but because your own words, your own commitments, no longer carry any real weight within your inner world. When you tell yourself you will do something, whether it is waking up on time, completing a task, or avoiding a detrimental habit, and then you consistently do not, something small but profoundly important breaks inside. Over time, those small unacknowledged breaks accumulate, and eventually, even your most serious intentions feel hollow, lacking the genuine conviction needed to propel you forward. Self-trust is the quiet, indispensable foundation of all lasting discipline. It is the deep-seated belief that when you give yourself an instruction, a promise, or a direction, it will, in fact, be followed. Without that bedrock belief, discipline feels like a constant, forced imposition, a battle waged against an untrustworthy inner self. With it, however, discipline begins to feel natural, almost effortless, an expression of your deepest integrity. And the only way, the truly immutable way, to rebuild and fortify self-trust is through concrete, undeniable evidence, not through fleeting motivational speeches or wishful thinking. Most people, in their earnest desire to rebuild discipline, make a critical error. They start by making grand, sweeping promises. They aim impossibly high. They construct perfectly intricate plans, and then, almost inevitably, they fail to follow through on the sheer scale of their ambition. Each successive failure, rather than spurring them on, sadly confirms a painful, limiting belief: I cannot rely on myself. That belief, once entrenched, becomes a powerful, self-imposed ceiling, not because it is inherently true about their potential, but because it is relentlessly reinforced by their pattern of over-promising and under-delivering. The genuine solution is not to lower your ultimate standards or your grand aspirations. It is, instead, to significantly lower the size and scope of your immediate promises to yourself. Discipline grows fastest, most securely, when promises are small, crystal clear, and, crucially, kept with consistent regularity. This is precisely how trust is built in every meaningful relationship in life, including, and perhaps most importantly, the profound relationship you have with yourself. Think about it this way: if a friend, a colleague, or a romantic partner consistently broke their word to you, repeatedly failed to follow through on commitments, you would eventually stop taking them seriously. You might still listen to their words, but you would cease to rely on them, to truly trust their promises. The identical, devastating process occurs internally. When you habitually ignore your own commitments, when you casually betray your own declarations, your mind, your subconscious, stops believing you. Your internal authority erodes. Discipline fades because the power, the executive function of your own will, has been compromised. Rebuilding self-trust requires a deliberate, conscious reset. You must cease making vague, ambiguous commitments and begin making precise, actionable ones. Instead of the nebulous, I will work harder, shift to the concrete, I will work for 30 focused minutes on Project X, starting at 9 a.m. Instead of the general, I will eat better, commit to the specific, I will prepare my next meal properly, with vegetables and lean protein. Specific, measurable actions create clear, undeniable wins. At first, this meticulous approach might feel almost too easy. That is entirely intentional. Discipline, in this stage, is not about impressing yourself with superhuman feats. It is about diligently training for unwavering reliability. When you consistently, day after day, do precisely what you said you would do, something transformative shifts within your being. Your internal voice transforms from a mere suggestion into a firm, respected command. Each kept promise, no matter how small, strengthens the unbreakable bond between your intention and your action. You begin to move with less internal resistance. You stop overthinking every decision. You stop the destructive cycle of self-doubt. This transformation does not occur because life suddenly becomes easier, but because you become steadier, more grounded, more reliable to the person who matters most, yourself. Another vital principle is timing and realism. Your promises to yourself must be realistic for your current capacity, not for the idealized, super-disciplined version of yourself you aspire to be. Discipline respects reality. If you promise too much, you inevitably set yourself up for failure, which reinforces the cycle of mistrust. If you promise only what you can genuinely execute, you achieve wins, and winning, even small wins, builds invaluable momentum. This does not mean staying small forever. As your self-trust grows, so too does your capacity. Promises that once felt daunting become normal, then easy. What matters is that this expansion happens gradually, built on a solid foundation of consistent follow-through, not on the fragile wings of unbridled ambition. You must also learn to treat broken promises seriously, not with crippling shame or self-loathing, but with objective, analytical attention. When you fail to follow through, do not ignore it or sweep it under the rug. Instead, calmly ask, why did this happen? Was the promise unclear? Was it too large for my current capacity? Was it poorly timed or scheduled? Discipline improves through honest, non-judgmental review and intelligent adjustment, not through self-attack or emotional punishment. There is a profound discipline in recovery itself. When you miss a commitment, return immediately. Do not wait for a fresh start, tomorrow or next week. Return now. The speed and integrity with which you recover from a slip-up matters far more than the mistake itself. Over time, this unwavering commitment to self-trust fundamentally changes how you carry yourself in the world. You walk differently. You speak with a new quiet authority. You stop over-promising to others because you deeply value your own word. You cease seeking external pressure or accountability because your internal pressure, your integrity to yourself, is more than sufficient. This, my friend, is when discipline becomes truly dangerous. When you know, without drama or internal struggle, that you will do what you say you will do. No hype, no internal battle, just quiet, resolute execution. So, start here. Make one small promise today, a simple, undeniable promise you know you can keep. Keep it. Tomorrow, do it again. And again, patiently, honestly, and relentlessly prove to yourself that you can be trusted. Discipline is not built in grand, singular moments for triumph. It is forged silently and powerfully in the quiet respect you consistently earn from yourself. That respect is the wellspring of true liberty. Chapter 6. Beyond Motivation, the Power of Uninspired Action. Motivation is a fooling, and herein lies its fundamental flaw. Foolings are inherent and unreliable. They are capricious like the weather, rising and falling with the tides of circumstance, stress, sleep, and even the time of day. They tend to appear brightly when conditions are favorable, when tasks are exciting, and then, most frustratingly, they vanish precisely when you need them most, when the work is hard, when the novelty has worn off, when progress feels slow. If your very trajectory toward your goals, depends solely on the presence of motivation, then your results will always be inconsistent, perpetually at the mercy of your emotional state. Discipline, in its most potent form, begins the moment you stop asking, "Do I feel like doing this?" and shift to the far more powerful question, "Is this required?" Most people, trapped in the cycle of emotional dependence, wait for motivation before they act. They wait to feel inspired, to feel energized, to feel a surge of confidence. And while they wait, often for an indefinite period, nothing truly moves, nothing of substance is created. Discipline, however, understands a simple, immutable truth that is often counterintuitive to our modern sensibilities. Action comes first. Motivation, at fleeting feeling, follows later, if it comes at all, and often it does not. There will undoubtedly be days when you wake up feeling driven, sharp, focused, and utterly ready to conquer the world. Those days, while enjoyable, are easy. They do not truly build your discipline. Discipline is forged, strengthened, and tempered far more numerous days when you fall flat, distracted, resistant, or just plain unmotivated. Yet, despite these internal protests, you work anyway, not perfectly, perhaps not enthusiastically, but consistently. You show up. Working without motivation does not imply forcing yourself into a state of intense, grinding suffering. It means, rather, lowering the emotional bar for action. Instead of waiting to feel good, to feel passionate, to feel on fire, you give yourself explicit permission to work poorly, to work slowly, to work quietly, to work imperfectly, as long as you simply work. Progress, true progress, does not demand soaring passion in every moment. It demands consistent presence. This subtle, yet profound, shift in mindset changes everything. When your internal rule becomes, I show up regardless of how I feel, excuses lose their seductive power. You stop dramatizing the effort required. Work transforms from something you constantly debate and agonize over into something you simply do. That quiet simplicity, that unwavering commitment to showing up, is the fundamental bedrock of unbreakable discipline. A common mistake, perpetuated by much of modern self-help, is trying to constantly manufacture motivation through external means, through high-energy music, inspiring videos, or relying on external pressure from accountability partners. While these can offer occasional, temporary boosts, they ultimately create dependence. Discipline, true discipline, is independence. It is the profound ability to move forward, to create, to progress, without requiring constant external stimulation or internal emotional permission. Think of essential daily tasks like brushing your teeth. You do not wait for a surge of motivation to brush your teeth. You do not need excitement. You do it because it is a non-negotiable part of your daily routine, a part of who you are. Its discipline, in its most advanced form, aims to bring that same sense of normalcy, that same unquestioning execution, to your most important efforts. On unmotivated days, your primary goal is not to perform at your absolute best, to achieve peak output. Your goal, far more strategically, is to protect the habit. Even minimal action counts, and counts immensely. 10 focused minutes of work, even when your mind is drifting, are infinitely better than none. One page written, however imperfect, is a victory over waiting for the elusive perfect session. Showing up, even in a diminished capacity, preserves crucial momentum. Momentum is a fragile, precious thing. Once broken, it is incredibly difficult to restart. Discipline understands this delicate balance and prioritizes continuity over intensity, especially on the difficult days. It would rather move slowly, with quiet persistence, than stop completely and risk derailing the entire process. Another vital skill to cultivate is the ability to separate your feelings from your decisions and actions. Feelings are fleeting visitors. Decisions are the architects for your destiny. Your feelings can absolutely exist without being obeyed. You can feel profoundly tired and still choose to work. You can feel intensely bored and still choose to focus. You can feel overwhelming resistance and still choose to act. Discipline does not deny the existence of these feelings. It simply firmly refuses to let them dictate your behavior or your commitments. You may, and often will, notice a fascinating phenomenon. Once you initiate the action, once you simply begin, your motivation often, surprisingly, increases. This is not coincidence. It is profound psychological truth. Action creates clarity. Motion, any motion, invariably reduces resistance. The hardest part, almost always, is simply starting. Once you are in motion, once you are immersed in the task, the mind often settles, finding its rhythm. But even on the days when that elusive motivation never shows up, even when the work remains uninspired, something profoundly valuable still occurs. You reinforce the powerful identity of someone who works regardless of mood, regardless of feeling. That identity, forged through consistent, uninspired action, is far more powerful and far more reliable than any temporary surge of inspiration. Working without motivation also builds immense emotional strength and resilience. You stop viewing low energy or a lack of enthusiasm as a catastrophic problem. You stop labeling off days as personal failures. Instead, you learn to function, to progress, across a wide range of internal states. That adaptability, that unwavering capability, makes your discipline incredibly durable and robust. Be careful not to confuse this principle with burnout. True discipline respects the absolute necessity of recovery. Rest is not an escape. It is a vital, scheduled component of the overall system. You rest because it is time to rest, because it is necessary for sustainable performance, not because you are avoiding effort or procrastinating. Over time, this disciplined approach creates a profound sense of calm confidence. You no longer dread or fear bad days. You do not panic when motivation mysteriously disappears. You simply trust yourself, implicitly, to keep moving, to keep showing up, regardless of the internal weather. Remember this enduring truth: motivation is a bonus, a pleasant tailwind, but never, ever a requirement. Discipline is the quiet, dangerous skill of acting without it. Learn to work in its absence, and you will never again be dependent on how you feel to make tangible progress toward your goals. That, my friend, is true, unshakable power and the deepest expression of personal liberty. Chapter 7: The Unsung Hero, Endurance for Repetition and Boredom. Most people quit their pursuits, their diets, their fitness routines, their creative projects, their businesses, not because the work becomes impossibly hard, but because it becomes undeniably repetitive. The initial excitement fades, the intoxicating rush of novelty dissipates, visible progress slows to an imperceptible crawl, and the days begin to blend into a monotonous landscape of sameness. This, precisely this, is where true discipline is profoundly tested, not in the dramatic high-stakes moments of intense effort, but in the long, quiet, and glamorous stretches of sustained, often boring, consistency. If you are serious about cultivating dangerous discipline, the kind that outlasts trends and temporary enthusiasms, you must deliberately build your endurance for boredom. Boredom is not a sign that something is inherently wrong with your path or your process. More often, it is a powerful signal that novelty has gracefully exited the stage, and the real deep work has truly begun. The early stages of any new endeavor, learning a skill, starting a business, embarking on a new routine, feel inherently energizing, because everything is fresh, every interaction is a discovery. But mastery, true mastery, lives far beyond that initial, exhilarating stage. It lives in the quiet, often mundane, act of repetition, in the steady rhythm of routine, and in the unwavering commitment to quiet consistency. Discipline fails when people erroneously expect the process of progress to always feel rewarding, to always be exciting. They operate under the false assumption that motivation should perpetually carry them forward. When that motivation inevitably wanes, when boredom sets in, they mistakenly interpret this lack of emotional thrill as a signal to change direction, to seek out something new, something more stimulating. This is a profound and costly mistake. Boredom, far from being an obstacle, is often the unassuming doorway to depth, to true understanding, and to profound mastery. Highly disciplined people understand this fundamental truth. They do not chase fleeting excitement. They commit with a quiet ferocity, to the process itself. They show up day after day, even when nothing feels different, even when results are invisible to the naked eye, even when external praise or recognition is entirely absent. They trust, with unwavering conviction, in the power of accumulation, the silent, compounding effect of consistent effort. Repetition, in its humble steadfastness, builds skill. Repetition forges unwavering confidence. Repetition, above all else, builds and solidifies identity. The same intentional action, performed daily, patiently rewires your mind and body, carving new neural pathways and strengthening your resolve. However, repetition also mercilessly exposes impatience. It tests whether you are genuinely committed to the long-term outcome or merely addicted to the immediate gratification of external stimulation. The modern world, with its endless stream of content, notifications, and instant feedback loops, is meticulously designed to help you avoid boredom at all costs. The moment silence or stillness appears, something rushes in to fill it: a phone, a news feed, a stream of noise. This constant external stimulation, while seemingly innocuous, profoundly weakens your capacity to stay with one thing, to immerse yourself in a single task, to tolerate the quiet space of sustained attention. Discipline, the kind that endures, requires the cultivation, the exact opposite skill, sustained attention, without immediate reward. Training your boredom endurance starts small, almost imperceptibly. It might involve working on a task without the comforting background noise of music or a podcast. It might mean deliberately sitting with a task for a few minutes longer than your initial urge to stop, to seek distraction. It might involve simply allowing a moment of silence to exist in your day, without automatically reaching for your phone. These are not dramatic attention-grabbing acts, but they are incredibly powerful in retraining your internal landscape. At first, boredom will feel genuinely uncomfortable. Your mind, accustomed to constant novelty, will search desperately for escape routes, for any form of external stimulation. This is normal. You are actively breaking dependency on superficial novelty. Stay with it. Allow the discomfort to exist. The good news is, like all temporary states, the acute discomfort eventually passes. And when it does, when you push through that initial resistance, your focus deepens. Something profound happens when you consciously stop running from boredom. You begin to notice intricate details, subtle patterns, and previously invisible improvements that were masked by your constant pursuit of stimulation. Boredom, in this context, is not emptiness. It is space, space to think critically, space to refine your approach, space to build something truly solid and enduring. Boredom also cultivates patience, a virtue increasingly scarce in our instant gratification world. You stop rushing results. You cease trying to force outcomes into existence. You internalize the understanding that real, significant progress compounds quietly, steadily, over long stretches of time. Discipline matures, becoming truly dangerous when the frantic urgency for immediate results disappears and only unwavering consistency remains. This chapter is not about forcing yourself to suffer through dull, uninspiring work indefinitely. It is about redefining your relationship with boredom itself. Highly disciplined people often appear outwardly calm and unflappable. That calm emanates from a profound familiarity with the work. They have repeated the necessary actions so many times that internal resistance no longer surprises them. They do not require external excitement to begin. They simply know what needs to be done, and they do it. Endurance for repetition also serves as a powerful shield against distraction masquerading as opportunity. But when you lack this endurance, When you are perpetually seeking novelty, you jump erratically from plan to plan, from project to project, always restarting, rarely finishing. True discipline finishes. You will feel the urge to change things, to switch tactics, when boredom appears. Before you act on that impulse, ask yourself a simple, clarifying question. Am I genuinely bored, or am I just uncomfortable with the quiet demands of consistency? The answer to that question matters immensely. There is a deep dignity in repetition. There is immense strength in showing up, day after day, week after week, month after month, when nothing feels special, when no one is watching, when the only reward is the quiet satisfaction of knowing you are building something solid. Over time, repetition blossoms into rhythm. Rhythm solidifies into unshakable stability, and stability, that quiet, dangerous force, transforms into profound, enduring power. Dangerous discipline is not flashy or dramatic. It is quiet, patient, and absolutely relentless. Build your endurance for repetition and boredom, and you will, without fail, outlast most people without ever needing to rush. You will find true liberty in the steady drumbeat of progress. Chapter 8. The Internal Compass. Raising your personal standards. Discipline, at its deepest level, does not come from merely trying harder. Trying harder is a temporary surge of willpower, fleeting burst of effort that often exhausts itself quickly. True, sustainable discipline, the kind that becomes an inherent part of who you are, stems from a far more powerful internal mechanism. It comes from consistently expecting more from yourself. When your personal standards are low or worse, vaguely defined, discipline feels entirely optional, an extra layer of effort you might or might not choose to adopt. But when your standards rise, when they become crystal clear and non-negotiable, discipline ceases to be an option. It becomes an absolute necessity, an undeniable imperative for aligning your actions with your identity. This is the profound difference between individuals who navigate life with consistent ease and those who perpetually struggle daily, caught in a cycle of motivation and relapse. It is rarely about willpower, which, as we have established, is a finite resource. It is almost always about standards. A standard is fundamentally different from a goal. Goals are external targets. If things you aspire to achieve, a certain income, a physical milestone, a completed project. Standards, a contrast, are internal commitments, the unyielding behaviors and qualities you absolutely refuse to compromise on, regardless of external circumstances. Goals point forward to destination. Standards hold the line, defining the non-negotiable floor below which you will not descend. When these personal standards are clear, discipline flows naturally, almost effortlessly, because anything below them simply feels unacceptable to who you believe yourself to be. Most people articulate a desire for better results, for a more fulfilling life, for greater achievements. Yet, they quietly, unconsciously, tolerate myriad of behaviors that virtually guarantee average outcomes. They accept late starts, half-hearted effort, and creative excuses that sound perfectly reasonable to the outside world, but hollow to their inner selves. Discipline, in its true power, cannot survive in such a permissive environment. It demands firm, unwavering expectations. Raising your standards is not about becoming harsh, judgmental, or impossibly unrealistic. It is about becoming profoundly precise. It is about deciding with absolute clarity what good enough truly means for you, for your potential, for your life, and then, with quiet determination, refusing to ever go below that self-imposed threshold. This newfound clarity dissolves confusion. You no longer engage in internal debates like, should I do this today? You already know the answer. The standard has spoken. Think for a moment about the areas of your life where you are already naturally disciplined. You likely have significantly higher, often unspoken standards in those domains. Perhaps you consistently show up on time for work, no matter what. Perhaps you keep certain promises to others without a second thought. That quiet, unwavering discipline exists precisely because the standard in that area is non-negotiable. It is simply who you are. You do not debate it. You embody it. The same powerful principle applies everywhere else. When standards are vague, behavior drifts aimlessly. When standards are specific, precise, and deeply held, behavior aligns with remarkable consistency. Discipline grows in the potent, fertile space between your expectation and your execution. Many people shrink from the idea of raising their standards because they fear the perceived pressure, the imagined burden. But here is the paradox. Low standards, vague expectations, and constant self-leniency often create far more pressure in the long run. They lead to the corrosive weight of regret, the insidious stress of unfulfilled potential, and the gnawing pain of self-doubt. High standards, while they may introduce short-term discomfort and demand initial effort, ultimately cultivate long-term peace, profound self-respect, and a clear conscience. Raising your standards also demands a ruthless, unflinching honesty with yourself. You must confront, perhaps for the first time, where you have been overly lenient, where you have made excuses, where you have explained away behavior that you know, deep in your heart, does not align with your true potential. This self-confrontation is uncomfortable indeed, but it is absolutely necessary for growth and for the reclaiming of your internal sovereignty. Start small, but start with conviction. Pick one area, one single standard, and commit to it fully. For example, when I start something, I finish it completely, or I do not waste my mornings, they are sacred for deep work. I always prepare thoroughly before I perform or engage. These kinds of standards demand discipline because they deliberately remove easy exits, convenient compromises, and comfortable backdoors. Once a standard is set, its enforcement becomes paramount. A standard that is not consistently enforced, even on yourself, quickly devolves into a mere suggestion, a wish. Discipline strengthens when you hold yourself accountable with calm resolve, not with emotional drama or self-flagellation. When you inevitably fall short, which you will, you correct course immediately, dispassionately, and with a clear focus on adjustment, not punishment. Another crucial distinction: standards are profoundly personal. They are not comparisons to others. Discipline weakens and becomes diluted when your standards are borrowed from external sources, from social media, or from what you believe others expect of you. Your standards must be a pure, authentic reflection of who you are becoming, of the highest vision of yourself, not an attempt to impress or conform. Paradoxically, raising your standards often simplifies your life. You make fewer decisions throughout the day because the rules, your internal policies, are already set. You experience significantly less guilt because expectations are crystal clear. You stop negotiating with yourself because the standard has already provided the unequivocal answer. Over time, consistently upholding higher standards profoundly reshapes your identity. You begin to see yourself not as someone who tries to do things, but as someone who does things properly, fully, and on time. That powerful, self-reinforced identity, in turn, fuels and reinforces your discipline without requiring endless force of will. There will inevitably be moments when you are fiercely tempted to lower your standards. Fatigue will set in, frustration will gnaw, convenience will beckon with its siren song. One might recall with absolute clarity why that standard exists. It is not there to punish you. It is there, purposefully, to protect your future, to safeguard your potential, and to ensure you remain aligned with your highest self. Dangerous discipline is forged and solidified when your standards are high enough that inconsistency, mediocrity, or half-hearted effort feels genuinely uncomfortable to you. When doing things halfway no longer sits right with your internal compass. When excellence in your chosen domains becomes not an occasional aspiration, but a consistent, ingrained, and utterly normal way of being. Raise your standards thoughtfully, enforce them consistently, and discipline will, astonishingly, stop feeling like endless effort. It will, instead, feel like a profound and liberating alignment with the extraordinary person you quietly, dangerously refuse to stop becoming. This is the very essence of self-mastery and freedom. Chapter 9. The Energy Economy. Guarding your most valuable resource, time, in the grand scheme of human endeavor, is undeniably important. We often speak of time management as the cornerstone of productivity and success. However, there is a deeper, more fundamental truth that often goes overlooked. Energy decides everything. You can possess an abundance of available hours, a perfectly cleared schedule, an entire day stretching before you, and still accomplish nothing truly meaningful if your energy is depleted, scattered, or mismanaged. Discipline, that quiet, dangerous force, collapses not primarily because people lack time, but because they lack usable energy. When your energy reserves are low, a cascade of detrimental effects ensues. Focus disappears, patience thins to an unsustainable thread, and the internal resistance to effort feels exponentially heavier than it should. Tasks that would normally be straightforward become Herculean struggles. Most people, tragically, treat their energy casually, almost as an afterthought. They push themselves relentlessly when they are already exhausted. They attempt to recover randomly or reactively, and then they wonder, with genuine bewilderment, why discipline feels like such an arduous, uphill battle. But discipline is not merely a mental construct. It is profoundly physical, deeply emotional, and intricately psychological. When your energy is mismanaged, discipline becomes a constant, forced exertion, draining your very life force. When your energy is thoughtfully protected, meticulously managed, and strategically replenished, discipline flows naturally, becoming a current that carries you forward with ease. Guarding your energy, like a truly scarce and precious resource, begins with profound self-awareness. You must diligently observe what consistently drains you, and equally important, what genuinely restores you. Some energy drains are glaringly obvious: chronic lack of sleep, poor nutrition, a sedentary lifestyle, or an absence of physical movement. Others are far more subtle, insidious thieves of your vitality. Constant, incessant notifications that fragment your attention, unresolved emotional stress and internal conflict, the habit of saying yes too often to external demands, or the debilitating mental chatter of overthinking decisions that ultimately do not matter. Sleep is not a luxury, it is a discipline multiplier, the absolute bedrock of sustained performance. When sleep is compromised, even slightly, everything else becomes exponentially harder. Your focus weakens, your emotional regulation becomes fragile, your willpower, that precious finite resource, shrinks. A truly disciplined life, one committed to personal sovereignty, respects rest, and prioritizes sufficient, quality sleep, because it profoundly understands the catastrophic cost of chronic exhaustion. Movement matters for the same reason. You do not need to be an extreme athlete, but you absolutely need consistent, intentional movement. Physical activity, even moderate, regular exercise, clears mental fog, stabilizes your mood, and acts as a powerful restorative force for your energy. A stagnant body, tragically, often creates a sluggish, unresponsive mind. Nutrition plays a quiet, yet fundamental role as well. What you consume, the fuel you provide your body, directly affects how you think, how you feel, and how you act. Discipline does not demand perfect dietary adherence, but it does demand awareness. Heavy, processed, nutrient-empty foods drain mental clarity and physical vitality. Simple, regular, wholesome meals, conversely, provide the sustained energy that supports unwavering consistency. Beyond the physical, emotional energy matters deeply. Carrying the heavy weight of unresolved resentment, chronic frustration, or constant, self-defeating comparison to others is an immense, often invisible, drain on your core vitality. Discipline weakens when your mind is perpetually busy reacting to external events or to things you cannot control. Learning the art of letting go, of past mistakes, of external opinions, of things beyond your sphere of influence, is a critical energy management skill, a profound act of self-liberation. One of the most significant and pervasive energy leaks in modern life is chronic overcommitment. Every obligation you take on, every task you agree to, costs energy, whether you consciously notice it or not. Saying yes too easily to every request or opportunity leaves you perpetually spread thin, your energy diluted across too many fronts. Discipline, in its wisdom, requires margin, ample space to focus deeply, space to recover fully, and space to simply be. Guarding your energy also means rigorously protecting your focus. Attention is energy. When your attention is constantly fragmented, pulled in a multitude of directions by distractions and multitasking, your energy follows suit, dissipating rapidly. Multitasking, while often feeling productive in the moment, is a notorious energy drain. Discipline, in its unwavering pursuit of mastery, favors depth of focus over superficial breadth. Design your days, as we discussed, so that your most demanding and important work aligns precisely with your highest natural energy levels. This requires honest self-assessment. When are you sharpest? When do you naturally fade? Discipline works with your natural rhythm, not against it. Another often overlooked factor is mental clutter. A mind cluttered with unfinished tasks, vague plans, and a constant stream of unanswered questions acts like an open circuit, subtly pulling at your attention and draining your mental energy. The simple acts of writing things down, clarifying next actions, and consciously closing loops by completing tasks or making firm decisions frees up immense energy you did not even realize you were losing. Finally, rest must be intentional, not merely a collapse from exhaustion or an escape from responsibility. Intentional rest, scheduled, respected, and guilt-free, actively restores your energy. When rest is earned through focused effort and deliberately planned, it powerfully supports and sustains your discipline. When it is reactive, a mere consequence of exhaustion or avoidance, it inevitably undermines your long-term consistency. Guarding your energy is not selfish, it is profoundly responsible. When your energy is stable, robust, and well-managed, you show up better for your work, better for your relationships, and ultimately, better for yourself. Discipline then becomes a sustainable flowing force, rather than a draining finite effort. Over time, through mindful self-observation, you will notice patterns. Certain habits, certain environments, certain relationships consistently strengthen you. Others just as consistently weaken you. Discipline is the conscious, courageous choice to increasingly lean into those strengthening habits and strategically minimize the weakening ones. Protect your energy like it is the priceless, life-giving fuel it truly is, because it is, and in doing so, you protect the very wellspring of your self-mastery and your liberty. Chapter 10. The Art of the Intentional No. Boundaries for Freedom. Disciplines is not solely defined by what you meticulously do. It is, with equal and often greater importance, profoundly shaped by what you courageously refuse to do. Every yes you utter, every commitment you take on, carries an inherent cost, whether you consciously acknowledge it or not. Your finite resources, your precious time, your invaluable energy, your razor-sharp focus, and your vital emotional space are instantly allocated the moment you agree. When these resources are limited, as they always are in a life of purpose, sustained discipline depends critically on your unwavering ability to say no calmly, clearly, and without apology or unnecessary drama. Most people, unfortunately, struggle immensely with this fundamental skill. They conflate setting boundaries with outright rejection. They fear disappointing others, appearing selfish, or, in our hyper-connected world, missing out on opportunities. So, they reflexively say yes when their inner wisdom screams no, and then, quietly, insidiously, they resent the decision later. Discipline, that delicate inner structure, inevitably weakens and eventually crumbles in the corrosive acid of that silent resentment. Saying no does not require elaborate justification, lengthy explanations, or emotional apologies. It primarily requires crystal clear clarity about your own priorities and commitments. When you are profoundly clear about what truly matters most to you, what aligns with your deepest values and goals, then no becomes a natural, almost automatic response, rather than a dramatic, guilt-ridden struggle. You are not rejecting people, you are, with quiet resolve, protecting what matters most to your purpose and your well-being. Guilt, that familiar emotional companion, often appears when you first begin the crucial practice of setting firm boundaries. That is entirely normal and expected. Guilt, in this context, is simply the echo of old habits, the lingering expectation of others that you will always be available and compliant. It is not, let me assure you, objective evidence that you are doing something wrong. Discipline grows precisely when you allow that guilt to exist, to feel its presence, without permitting it to control your actions or override your clear intentions. One significant reason why saying no feels so incredibly hard for many is because they typically wait until they are already overwhelmed, burnt out, and nearing their breaking point before attempting to draw boundaries. By that stage, emotions are running high, explanations become defensive and lengthy, and the no feels deeply personal, even accusatory. Discipline, in its most effective form, thrives when boundaries are set proactively, early, and communicated with simple, dignified clarity. A truly calm, confident no sounds like this: I appreciate the invitation, but I cannot commit to that right now. No excuses, no over-explaining, no emotional charge. The more you attempt to explain or rationalize your refusal, the more negotiable your no becomes in the eyes of others, and tragically, in your own mind. Discipline prefers clean, unambiguous edges. Here is another important, liberating truth. Not everyone, despite their persistent requests, needs or deserves unlimited access to you and your finite resources. Constant availability is not a virtue. Deliberate selectivity is. When you are always available, always on call, your precious time and energy are constantly diluted, spread thin across too many demands. When you are thoughtfully selective, Your energy is concentrated, focused like a laser beam on what truly matters. The principle of selectivity applies not only to people and their requests, but also to tasks, to information streams, and to the endless onslaught of distractions. You must cultivate the courage to say no to unnecessary meetings, to irrelevant conversations, to the constant need for updates, and to the bottomless pit of content consumption. Discipline thrives on deep focus, and deep focus, in turn, absolutely requires firm, well-maintained boundaries. You will, without a doubt, encounter resistance when you begin to practice this. Some people will inevitably push back. Some will question your commitment. Some will subtly or overtly test whether your no is genuinely real, whether your boundaries are porous. This is not necessarily a personal conflict. It is, more often than not, a process of adjustment. Stay calm, stay consistent. The more consistently you enforce your boundaries, the less explanation you will ultimately need. People, eventually, adapt to your new standard, but more importantly, you adapt. You stop feeling perpetually responsible for managing other people's reactions or for cushioning their disappointment. Saying no without drama also means releasing the deep-seated, often unconscious, need to be liked by everyone. Discipline and universal approval are rarely companions on the same path. Forward and forth is inextricably linked to being agreeable, to being seen as nice. Then discipline will always feel uncomfortable, a source of internal conflict. You must make a conscious, courageous decision about which matters more, being superficially liked or respected by others, or being profoundly reliable and true to yourself. This does not mean becoming cold, dismissive, or unkind. It means being honest, clear, direct, and respectful, both to yourself and to others. A disciplined no is not harsh. It is clean, firm, and leaves no room for ambiguity. Over time, something surprising and incredibly liberating happens. Saying no becomes easier, not because people stop asking, but because you develop a deep, unwavering trust in your own ability to protect your priorities and your energy. That self-trust significantly reduces anxiety. You no longer feel perpetually pulled in every conceivable direction, hostage to every external demand. When you say no to the wrong things, to the distractions, the unnecessary obligations, the energy leaks, you create invaluable space to say a resounding yes to the right ones. Space for deep, meaningful work, space for restorative rest, space for profound personal growth. Discipline thrives and flourishes in that sacred, protected space. Remember this indelible truth. Every undisciplined yes subtly weakens you, dilutes your focus, and erodes your energy. Every disciplined no, conversely, quietly strengthens you, sharpens your purpose, and fortifies your self-sovereignty. Practice saying no without guilt or drama, and you will, with quiet astonishment, discover how much power, how much precious liberty you have been unconsciously giving away without ever truly realizing it. Reclaim your right to choose. Chapter 11. The Unbeaten Path. Standing alone in your direction. There comes a pivotal point in every truly disciplined life. A moment of profound, perhaps uncomfortable, realization. If you genuinely commit to your highest standards, if you truly align your actions with your deepest principles, you'll not always fit in. Discipline, by its very nature, separates, not because it inherently makes you superior or better than others, but because its unwavering pursuit pulls you, inevitably, out of the comfortable, often crowded, territory of the average. An average, my friends, is almost always crowded. Most people, unconsciously and often without realizing it, shape their behavior to match the prevailing norms of those around them. They work when others work. They rest when others rest. They stop when others stop. They conform to the unspoken expectations of their social circles, their professional environments, their cultural landscape. Discipline, however, fundamentally disrupts this pattern. It demands that you move, not according to popularity, not according to fleeting trends, and certainly not according to external pressure, but according to your own inner principles, your own carefully chosen standards. Standing alone, in this context, does not equate to isolation or a deliberate rejection of human connection. It signifies a profound, liberating independence. It means that your direction, your purpose, your path is not swayed or dictated by the fickle currents of external approval, the latest fads, or the subtle coercion of peer pressure. It means you can calmly listen to a multitude of opinions. You can absorb diverse perspectives without ever being pulled off your chosen, deliberate course. In the initial stages, this deliberate act of nonconformity will feel intensely uncomfortable. You may feel profoundly out of sync with your peers, your family, or your colleagues. You may inevitably question yourself. Am I being too strict? Am I too serious? Am I just being difficult or unnecessarily different? This internal doubt is a natural, almost predictable companion whenever you venture beyond the familiar, whenever you step off the well-trodden path. Discipline, however, demands internal validation. If your confidence, if your sense of self-worth depends perpetually on external agreement or applause, you will, without fail, always adjust your behavior to stay accepted, to remain part of the comfortable herd. Discipline, in its highest form, asks a different, more challenging question. It demands that you adjust your behavior, not to appease others, but to stay profoundly aligned with your own chosen principles and your highest vision for yourself. This is particularly challenging in a world awash in constant, instant feedback. Likes, comments, shares, opinions, endless comparisons. These digital echoes surround us, often creating an insatiable hunger for external validation. Discipline, however, demands that you cultivate the skill to operate without immediate reassurance. You must learn to trust your own process, your own internal compass, even when no one else is watching, and when no one is there to clap. Your greatest audience is yourself. Standing alone also means cultivating a quiet resilience, a willingness to resist the pervasive urge to endlessly explain yourself. When you feel the desperate need to justify your choices, your commitments, your unique path, you subtly give away your internal authority. Discipline is quiet. It does not announce itself with grand pronouncements or seek permission from others. It simply is. You will inevitably notice that some people interpret your discipline, your quiet consistency, as a form of judgment directed at them. They may feel uncomfortable around your unwavering commitment, your refusal to compromise. This, however, is not your responsibility. Everyone filters the behavior of others through the lens of their own standards, their own insecurities, their own aspirations. The true danger lies in allowing these external reactions to soften your commitment, to dilute your resolve, lowering your standards simply to blend in, delaying a crucial action to avoid standing out. These are quiet betrayals of your disciplined self. Learning to stand alone also means learning to genuinely enjoy your own company. Silence, that often feared void, becomes less threatening and more inviting. Solitude, once perhaps avoided, transforms into a productive, enriching space for reflection, creativity, and deep work. You gradually cease needing constant external input or affirmation to feel secure or complete. This profound independence, This self-sufficiency powerfully strengthens your focus. When you are no longer buffeted by the winds of external comparison or expectation, you are free to move at your own authentic pace. You stop rushing, you stop doubting, you begin to trust the wisdom of the long game. There will be moments, without question, when standing alone feels heavy, when the path seems arduous, when it would be infinitely easier, more comfortable, to simply conform. There will be days when discipline feels lonely. In those moments, return to your core. Remind yourself, with unwavering clarity, why you chose this path. Not to impress, not to escape, but to become profoundly reliable to yourself, to fulfill your potential, to embody your highest values. Over time, something profound shifts. The gnawing need for external validation weakens, then dissolves. You become comfortable with being misunderstood. You do not feel the need to correct every assumption or explain every choice. You simply allow your consistent results to speak for themselves. And here is the quiet yet profound reward. People gradually begin to trust you. Not because you are loud or intensely charismatic, but because you are remarkably consistent. Not because you offer endless explanations, but because you reliably deliver. Standing alone, paradoxically, sharpens your direction. It forces you into absolute clarity about what truly matters to you. It purifies your purpose, stripping away the inessential. Discipline grows exponentially stronger when it is not diluted by external noise, by social pressure, or by the subtle pull of conformity. Learn to stand alone, to confidently navigate your unique direction, even when no one else is walking with you. That, my friend, is the undeniable mark of real, dangerous discipline, the profound ability to move forward steadily, reliably, and with unwavering conviction, forging your own liberty. Chapter 12. The Compass of Progress. Measuring what matters. In the vast landscape of human endeavor, a simple, profound truth governs progress. What you do not measure drifts. What you measure almost inevitably improves. Discipline, that powerful inner structure, is not built on fleeting emotion or vague intention alone. It is relentlessly reinforced by objective feedback, by the tangible evidence of your actions and their results. When progress remains invisible, when effort seems to disappear into the ether, motivation inevitably fades, and consistency, that delicate habit, becomes frustratingly elusive. Measurement, in its quiet power, brings clarity, and clarity, above all else, strengthens discipline. Most people fall into one of two traps when it comes to tracking their progress. They either measure absolutely nothing, leaving them perpetually guessing about their effectiveness, or they attempt to measure everything, leading to overwhelm, analysis paralysis, and ultimately, obsession rather than insight. Both approaches are detrimental. Measuring nothing leaves you adrift, without a compass. Measuring everything creates a suffocating pressure and distracts from the actual work. Discipline, in its wisdom, lives in the intelligent middle. It focuses only on what genuinely, tangibly moves you forward. Measurement, it is critical to understand, is not about judgment or self-punishment. It is about awareness. When you possess clear, objective data about what is happening, about your actions, and their immediate consequences, you can respond intelligently, strategically, and with purpose. When you do not, you are condemned to react emotionally, swayed by feelings and fleeting perceptions rather than grounded in reality. Ispapion, in its pursuit of mastery, profoundly prefers reliable information over subjective feeling. Begin by identifying a small, focused number of behaviors that matter most to your progress. not brand outcomes that are often beyond your immediate control, but specific, actionable behaviors that you can reliably repeat daily or weekly. These are your true discipline indicators. Consider tracking things like the amount of time you spend in focused, uninterrupted work, the number of days you intentionally trained or exercised, the hours of quality sleep you consistently achieve, the specific promises you kept to yourself. These are the metrics of self-mastery. Actively avoid tracking things that primarily generate anxiety or vanity, such as social media likes, comparisons to others, or external approval. These external metrics do not inherently strengthen discipline. They, more often than not, distract from its quiet, internal work. Measure what you can directly influence consistently. Simple systems, it turns out, work best. A straightforward checklist in a notebook, a dedicated calendar where you mark off completed tasks, a digital tracker that is easy to update. When the act of tracking itself becomes overly complex, requiring significant time and effort, it often transforms into a subtle form of avoidance, a distraction disguised as organization. Discipline, in its relentless pursuit of efficiency, values simplicity because it effectively removes friction from the process. Consistency in measurement matters far more than obsessive precision. You do not need perfectly granular data that could stand up to scientific scrutiny. You need honest data, however rough, that provides genuine insight. Even rudimentary tracking creates a powerful sense of accountability, turning vague, unquantified effort into a visible, undeniable pattern. Measurement also serves as a merciless, yet liberating revealer of truth. You may, for instance, genuinely believe you are consistently working out until you see the undeniable gaps in your workout log. You may believe you are profoundly disciplined until you notice, through your tracking, how often you delay important tasks or succumb to distractions. This self-awareness, while often uncomfortable, is absolutely necessary for genuine growth. Crucially, do not use measurement as a weapon to punish yourself or fuel self-criticism. That approach, paradoxically, weakens discipline by associating effort with pain and shame. Instead, use your data as a tool for intelligent adjustment. If something in your system is not working, if your numbers reveal a consistent shortfall, then change the system. Refine your approach, rather than questioning your inherent worth. Discipline through calm, rational correction, not through emotional self-attack. One of the most powerful and often overlooked benefits of consistent measurement is the generation of momentum. When you begin to see streaks forming, a continuous chain of good habits, of promises kept, you become powerfully less likely to break them. Progress becomes tangible, visible, undeniable. Discipline, in turn, becomes inherently rewarding, creating a positive feedback loop. Tracking also significantly reduces decision fatigue. When your desired behavior is consistently recorded, when the pattern is visible, you spend far less time and mental energy debating whether to act. The record speaks for itself. You apt to maintain the alignment, to extend the streak. There will inevitably be days when you fall short, when you break a streak, when you miss a commitment. That is an inherent and unavoidable part of the process of human endeavor. Discipline is not broken by a single missed day or a momentary slip-up. It is broken by the decision to quit tracking altogether. You abandon system of feedback. When you falter, return quickly, resume tracking honestly. The speed with which you return to your system matters immensely. Measurement should serve your life, empower your growth, and provide clarity. It should never dominate it or become a source of neurotic control. Tracking begins to feel heavy burdensome, or obsessive, simplify your system. The ultimate goal is insightful feedback, not perfect data. Over time, consistent measurement fundamentally shifts your mindset. You stop relying on the unpredictable whims of how you feel. You start trusting the undeniable evidence of patterns. You come to understand that enduring discipline is built in the patient accumulation of averages, in the consistent execution of small actions, rather than in rare, dramatic moments. You will also notice a profound growth in self-respect. Consistently keeping track of your actions signals a deep seriousness, an unwavering commitment to yourself. You are no longer guessing at the quality or consistency of your effort. You know, measure what genuinely moves you forward. Let the numbers inform, enlighten, and guide you, but never allow them to define your intrinsic worth. Discipline becomes exponentially stronger when progress is made visible and intelligent adjustment is always possible. This is how you take command of your own narrative. Chapter 13. Alchemy of Adversity. Turning setbacks into strength. Setbacks are not possibilities, they are inevitabilities. Anyone, absolutely anyone, who commits themselves to the arduous yet profoundly rewarding path of discipline will, without question, face them. There will be missed days, broken routines, moments of unexpected weakness, and lapses in resolve. This is not a sign of failure. It is an inherent part of the human journey. The fundamental difference between those who manage to stay disciplined, who ultimately achieve their goals, and those who consistently fall off, derailing their progress, is not the absence of failure. It is unequivocally their response to it. Discipline is not built by miraculously avoiding setbacks. It is built powerfully and resiliently by intelligently using them. Most people, unfortunately, treat setbacks as undeniable proof of their own inadequacy. They miss one commitment, they stumble on one task, and instantly they mentally label themselves as undisciplined, lazy, or a failure. That negative label, once adopted, becomes a dangerous self-fulfilling prophecy, a quiet permission to quit entirely, to abandon the path. Discipline, in these moments, collapses not because of the setback itself, but because of the destructive story told about it afterward. A setback, in its purest form, is not a judgment, it is invaluable information. It acts as a diagnostic tool, revealing precisely where your system is weak, where your expectations might have been unrealistic, or where your attention temporarily slipped. If you are willing to look at it calmly, objectively, and without the paralyzing weight of emotion, a setback transforms from an obstacle into a potent teacher. Highly disciplined people do not panic or descend into self-loathing when they experience a failure. They analyze. They ask simple, clarifying questions. What broke down in my system? Why did it happen? What specific adjustments need to be made? This analytical, objective approach prevents setbacks from spiraling into catastrophic, all-encompassing failures. One of the most dangerous, yet common, reactions to a failure is overcorrection. After missing a day of exercise or a deadline, people often feel immense guilt and, in an attempt to make up for their perceived shortcoming, they try to compensate with extreme, unsustainable effort. They commit to longer hours, impose harsher rules, or pile on immense pressure. This all-or-nothing approach frequently leads to burnout, exhaustion, and, ironically, another, often more significant, failure. Discipline improves through intelligent calibration, through thoughtful adjustment, not through self-punishment or unsustainable heroics. Another pervasive mistake is delay. After a setback, many people wait for a fresh start. I will begin again tomorrow. I will restart next week. I will pick it up next month. at the beginning of the quarter. Discipline, however, does not wait for perfect timing or a pristine new beginning. It returns immediately. The faster you resume your consistent action, the more powerfully you reinforce your discipline. Recovery speed, the speed at which you get back on track, matters infinitely more than the initial mistake itself. A missed day of practice followed by an immediate, albeit imperfect, return strengthens your discipline. A missed day followed by prolonged avoidance fundamentally weakens it, creating a chasm of inconsistency. Discipline, in its quiet power, is ultimately built in the return. Setbacks also serve as powerful illuminators of your emotional triggers. They reveal the specific circumstances or internal states that make you most vulnerable to inconsistency, stress, acute fatigue, sudden boredom, social pressure, unexpected changes in routine. When you begin to notice these patterns, when you understand why you tend to falter, you gain immense leverage. Discipline improves dramatically when you proactively prepare for these known triggers, instead of naively pretending they will not happen. This is where strategic reinforcement comes in. Each setback, rather than being a source of defeat, should lead to a small, actionable improvement in your system. This might be a new boundary added, a specific reminder created, a schedule intelligently adjusted, an alternative behavior put in place. Reinforcement means that your system, your approach to discipline, actually becomes stronger because of the failure, not despite it. It is the process of learning, adapting, and evolving. Discipline is, ultimately, a long game. In the grand sweep of a lifetime, individual setbacks are largely insignificant unless you imbue them with overwhelming, negative meaning. One missed action does not erase months or years of accumulated progress. Quitting entirely, however, does. It is paramount to remove all unnecessary drama from setbacks. No emotional self-attack. No lengthy self-pitying speeches. No existential identity crisis. Treat a setback like a piece of equipment requiring maintenance. Something broke. You identify it, you fix it, and you move on. There is also a profound humility embedded in this process. Discipline, in its highest form, does not mean you are immune to mistakes or somehow above human fallibility. It means you take absolute unwavering responsibility for the process of correction, for the relentless pursuit of alignment. That humility keeps discipline grounded, realistic, and ultimately sustainable. Over time, as you consistently apply this approach, setbacks lose their power to derail you. You stop fearing them. You know, with quiet confidence, precisely how to respond. You trust your own ability to recover, to adapt, to learn, and to resume. That self-trust, forged in the crucible of adversity, is a form of discipline itself. Dangerous discipline is resilient. It bends, it absorbs impact, but it fundamentally does not break. It takes the lessons from every stumble and continues forward, stronger and wiser. Turn setbacks into reinforcement. Let each failure sharpen your system, hone your resolve, and deepen your commitment. Discipline is not about never falling. It is about always standing back up, calmly, quickly, and without losing your unerring direction towards self-mastery. Chapter 14. The Invisible Architecture, Making Discipline Automatic. In the nascent stages of cultivating discipline, the process often feels intensely emotional. One day, you might experience a powerful surge of motivation, feeling utterly unstoppable, ready to conquer any challenge. The next day, however, you might be overwhelmed by a crippling wave of resistance, inertia, or self-doubt. Some days you push relentlessly, fueled by a temporary fire. Other days you find yourself avoiding, procrastinating, or retreating to comfort. This emotional swing This unpredictable oscillation between engagement and avoidance is perfectly normal at the beginning of any new endeavor. However, it cannot, by its very nature, be the stable, enduring foundation of a truly disciplined life. Discipline becomes truly powerful, truly dangerous, only when it ceases to depend on how you happen to feel in any given moment. Emotions, by their definition, are unstable. They change with the quality of your sleep, the level of your stress, the weather outside, and the countless, unpredictable circumstances of daily life. If your discipline rises and falls with your emotional state, then your consistency, your progress, will always remain fragile, perpetually at the mercy of your internal whims. The profound goal is not to eliminate emotion. That is an impossible and undesirable task, but to systematically remove emotion from the process of decision-making and action. Automatic discipline, the most formidable kind, is built through robust, intelligent systems, not through brute force willpower. Systems are profound because they decide for you in advance. They meticulously reduce the number of choices you have to make throughout the day. They effectively remove the internal debate and the emotional negotiation. When the system, your predefined internal policy, says it is time to act, you simply act. No emotional check-in required, no internal committee meeting. Consider for a moment how many things you already do automatically every single day. You do not negotiate with yourself about putting on clothes in the morning. You do not need a surge of motivation to turn on the faucet. You follow the system, the routine, the established pattern. Discipline, in its highest form, aims to elevate your most important, most impactful behaviors into that same category of unquestioning, automatic execution. This process begins with establishing clear, unambiguous triggers. A trigger is a specific signal, a certain time of day, a particular place, the completion of a preceding event that tells you precisely what action to take next. When that trigger appears, the intended action follows. Over time, through consistent repetition, this pairing becomes deeply ingrained and automatic. For example, you do not typically decide when to brush your teeth each day. The routine is almost subconsciously attached to waking up or going to bed. Discipline works in the same powerful way. Deliberately attach your important desired actions to existing routines, to specific times, or to prior actions, and they will require significantly less emotional effort to initiate. Another key component is aggressively reducing friction. The harder it is to start a desired action, the more opportunity there is for emotion, for resistance, for the internal debate to derail you. Therefore, intelligently prepare your environment so that the desired action is as easy and seamless as possible, and distraction is as difficult as possible. This is not laziness, it is intelligence, a strategic manipulation of your environment to support your goals. Automatic discipline also absolutely requires consistent repetition. The same intentional action, performed consistently, carves a deep neural groove in your brain. Once that groove is deep enough, deviation from the pattern actually begins to feel uncomfortable, even unnatural. This is the profound point when discipline transcends effort and begins to feel effortless. Be careful not to confuse automatic discipline with careless or thoughtless behavior. Automatic discipline is profoundly intentional. It is meticulously designed. You consciously choose the rules, the systems, the environmental setups with purpose and foresight. Then you simply follow them consistently, with quiet resolve. When discipline is emotional, you are perpetually arguing with yourself, expending vast amounts of mental energy in internal debate. When it is automatic, you simply move. Less internal noise, less pervasive stress, and significantly more tangible progress. There will still be days when emotion, in its unpredictability, pushes back, days of fatigue, frustration, or profound boredom. But your automatic systems, your ingrained routines, will carry you through those days without needing an intense surge of willpower. They become the unwavering current that keeps you moving forward, even in the doldrums. Another profound benefit of automatic discipline is a significant reduction in ego involvement. You stop making a big dramatic deal out of every effort you make. You do not need to feel a burst of pride or a sense of heroism every single time you perform a disciplined action. You simply do what you do. That humility, that quiet acceptance of the process, keeps your discipline stable, sustainable, and less susceptible to the fragile fluctuations of self-perception. Regularly review and refine your systems. If something stops working as effectively as it once did, or if circumstances change, adjust the system, the environment, the trigger, the alternative, not your fundamental commitment to discipline. Discipline, like any finely tuned machine, improves through intelligent refinement and iterative adjustment. Over time, you will notice a truly transformative shift. You no longer rely on sporadic bursts of motivation, those fleeting fireworks of enthusiasm. You no longer fear low-energy days or periods of resistance. Your behavior becomes remarkably steady, consistent across a wide range of internal and external conditions. This, my friend, is when discipline becomes truly dangerous. Quiet, reliable, predictable, and utterly unshakable make discipline automatic, not emotional. When action is decided in advance, when your environment supports your design, when your default path is the path of progress, then meaningful achievement becomes not just possible, but fundamentally inevitable. This is the ultimate expression of your personal liberty. Chapter 15. The unshakable identity, a person of their word. At the highest, most profound level, discipline is not a series of actions you perform, nor a collection of systems you implement. It is something far more fundamental, far more powerful. It is simple. It is the unwavering habit of keeping your word, especially and most powerfully when no one else in the world is watching, when there is no external accountability, no applause, no praise. Everything you have learned and integrated throughout this audiobook, the structure of your days, the raising of your standards, the guarding of your energy, the setting of clear boundaries, the creation of robust systems, all of it exists to support and solidify one core identity, a person who does what they say that they will do. This is the culminating point, where discipline stops being merely something you practice and profoundly transforms into someone you are. Most people, often unknowingly, underestimate the immense and transformative power of this identity. When your word is unreliable, even to yourself, when your inner commitments are routinely broken, everything in your life feels heavy, cumbersome, and fraught with internal conflict. You find yourself perpetually over-planning, overthinking every decision, desperately searching for external pressure, fleeting motivation, or outside accountability to simply get yourself to act. But when your word, your internal contract, is solid, when your integrity to self is unshakable, discipline feels remarkably lighter, almost effortless. You no longer require drama, grand pronouncements, or elaborate self-negotiations to act. A simple, firm decision is enough. Breaking promises to yourself carries a hidden, devastating cost. Each time it happens, your inner authority, that subtle yet potent executive function of your will, weakens further. You gradually begin to doubt your own intentions. You hesitate before making new commitments. You subconsciously lower your expectations for yourself to avoid the inevitable disappointment of non-follow-through. Over time, this creates a quiet, insidious erosion of self-confidence, of the very belief in your capacity to steer your own ship. Becoming someone who does not break promises, however, radically reverses that erosion. This does not mean you suddenly start promising more. Quite the opposite. It means you promise carefully, with profound deliberation and respect for your own finite resources. Discipline, at this advanced level, is highly selective. You do not casually commit to every fleeting impulse or external request. You deeply understand that every promise you make to yourself or to others is a sacred contract with your future energy, your precious focus, and your invaluable time. When you make a promise, you make it with a quiet, unshakable intent to keep it, not perfectly, not dramatically, but honestly, consistently, and with integrity. This demands integrity in the small things, the seemingly insignificant daily choices that accumulate into character. Waking up precisely when you said you would. Starting that task the moment you designated. Stopping a habit exactly when you declared you would. Even while individually seeming insignificant, compound over time into an unassailable foundation of character, of self-mastery. The key to this profound alignment. Your promises must be an honest match for your current real-world capacity. Over-promising and consistently under-delivering is the quickest way to break internal trust. Clear, realistic, yet challenging promises, conversely, build it steadily. Discipline, in its wisdom, respects current reality while simultaneously, patiently, steadily expanding it. There will still be moments, because you are human, when you fall short. What matters then, more than the lapse itself, is your immediate, unwavering response. A truly disciplined person does not ignore broken promises. They acknowledge them with honesty, correct course without self-attack, and relentlessly work to reduce the gap between their intention and their action the very next time. No excuses, no self-flagellation, just clear-eyed responsibility and immediate recommitment. As this identity of being a person of your word strengthens and solidifies, something remarkable changes in how you move through life. You become calmer, more grounded. You speak less because your actions speak volumes. You explain less because your consistency provides all the necessary justification. People, both in your inner and outer circles, begin to trust you implicitly, not because you are loud or intensely charismatic, but because you are reliably consistent. Not because you offer endless explanations, but because you consistently deliver. But most importantly, profoundly, you trust yourself. That self-trust, that deep, quiet knowing that you have your own back, becomes an inexhaustible source of inner power. You no longer need constant external reassurance. You do not fear commitment, because you know you will honor it. You do not avoid responsibility, because you know, with absolute certainty, that if something truly matters, you will handle it. This, my friend, is what dangerous discipline looks like in its final, most potent form. It is not rigid or extreme. It is, instead, profoundly reliable. It does not rely on fleeting mood, external pressure, or the applause of others. It rests entirely on the unshakable bedrock of integrity to self. Becoming a person who does not break promises is not about achieving an impossible perfection. It is about becoming profoundly, unwaveringly dependable. Day after day, decision after decision. When your word, your inner commitment, becomes solid, discipline no longer feel like a constant, draining effort. It feels, instead, like profound alignment. And from that sacred, unshakable place of safe integrity, progress is no longer uncertain. It is inevitable. Conclusion: your unstoppable future. We have now journeyed through the intricate landscape of self-discipline, dispelling myths and forging a new understanding. What began as a whisper of an idea, a challenging but attainable ideal, should now resonate within you as a clear, actionable path toward profound personal liberty. Discipline is not a finish line you cross once and for all, a destination you arrive at and then forget. It is rather a dynamic way of living, a continuous practice, a profound commitment you return to again and again, day after day, year after year. It is not loud, dramatic, or overtly impressive on the surface. Its true power lies in its quiet, consistent work, silently shaping your days, sharpening your decisions, and slowly, irrevocably, changing who you become. By now, one truth should be crystal clear. Discipline is not about brute force. It is not about self-punishment or unending struggle. It is fundamentally about alignment, the profound, empowering alignment between what you say truly matters to you and what you actually, consistently do. Dangerous discipline is not aggression toward life. It is, in its purest form, unshakable authority over yourself. It is the conscious, courageous ability to consistently choose effort over ease, clarity over chaos, and unwavering consistency over fleeting comfort. It is the liberating realization that you do not need perfect conditions, perfect motivation, or perfect feelings to move forward. You need only your chosen standards, your intelligently designed structure, and the integrity to consistently keep your word to yourself. Throughout this audiobook, we have explored how discipline is built, not magically found. It is trained through the patient, often boring, act of repetition. It is strengthened through the courageous setting of boundaries. It is protected and nurtured through profound self-respect. It grows exponentially when you train yourself to act without negotiating with your inner voice of resistance, when you learn to work effectively even in the absence of motivation, and when you commit to staying with the process long after the initial excitement has inevitably faded. There will, without a shadow of a doubt, be days when discipline feels heavy, when the internal resistance is loud and insistent, when every fiber of your being yearns to let things slide, to succumb to the path of least resistance. Understand this deeply. Those days are not setbacks. They are not failures. They are, in fact, the most potent training ground. Discipline is not truly proven when things are easy, when motivation is abundant, or when the rewards are immediate. It is proven most powerfully when you act correctly in silence, without external praise, without any sense of urgency, simply because it is the standard you have set for yourself. Remember this unwavering truth as you step back into your life. Discipline is not about attempting to control everything in your external world. That is a futile endeavor. It is instead about mastering and controlling what truly matters, your own actions, your precious energy, your personal standards, and the promises you make to yourself. When these fundamental elements are in order, when you have taken command of your inner world, where external life, paradoxically, becomes simpler, not necessarily easier, but undeniably clearer, more purposeful, and more aligned with your highest aspirations. You do not need to change everything at once, to overhaul your entire life in a single dramatic sweep. Discipline does not demand overwhelming intensity in every moment. What it demands, above all else, is unwavering consistency, one clear line held, one small specific promise kept, one single day designed with conscious intention. These seemingly small, cumulative acts, repeated with quiet resolve, will, Over time, create a life that feels profoundly solid, self-directed, and truly free. As you move forward from this moment, resist the urge to chase fleeting motivation. Do not wait for the elusive arrival of perfect confidence. And, most importantly, do not fall prey to the siren song of shortcuts. Instead, return, again and again, to the immutable fundamentals. Structure your days with purpose. Guard your energy as your most precious resource. Raise your personal standards until they demand your highest self. Act decisively when it is time to act. Rest intentionally when it is time to recover. And above all, with every fiber of your being, respect your word to yourself. This is how discipline becomes dangerous. Not because it is extreme or rigid, but because it is profoundly reliable, because it cannot be negotiated away by a passing mood or the lure of temporary comfort, because it quietly compounds while others hesitate, while others seek validation, while others are still debating. You now possess the knowledge, you understand what needs to be done. The rest, my friend, is execution, calm, patient, and absolutely relentless execution. Carry this newfound discipline into your days. Let it be the quiet guide for your choices. Let it profoundly shape your identity, transforming you from one who wishes into one who simply does. And over time, without noise or announcement, you will become someone truly powerful, powerful enough to trust yourself completely, powerful enough to command your own destiny, and powerful enough to live a life of unwavering, authentic liberty. Thank you for listening. This has been Master Self-Discipline today from Liberty Audiobook.